What Israel just did is in the Bible. The peace deal Israel just signed could be the most dangerous agreement ever. Ezekiel warned that when Israel finally feels secure and says peace and safety, the greatest invasion in human history would strike when their guard is down. You will be shocked when you discover 5 prophecies written 2,600 years ago that describe exactly what's happening in Israel right now. Discovery 1. When dwelling securely becomes deadly. Ezekiel 38:8 paints a horrific picture of Israel's future vulnerability. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste. But it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. Think about that language. Dwell safely, all of them. This wasn't just occasional peace or temporary ceasefire. This was complete security across the entire nation itself. The coalition invades when Israel feels safe. Defenses collapse when the guard drops. The very foundation of their security was an illusion. Sound familiar? Because Ezekiel describes a specific condition that most people completely miss. This invasion doesn't happen when Israel is weak. It doesn't happen when they're vulnerable. It doesn't happen during a time of war. It happens when they feel safe. But here's what most people miss about this moment. Look at verse 11. Ezekiel gets even more specific. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates. Unwalled villages, at rest, without walls, bars, or gates. The Hebrew word is Beitach, not just safety, but confidence, trust, security. Their guard is down. They believe they're protected. The military posture of constant alert has ended. The coalition looks at Israel and sees vulnerability. They see a nation that's let down its defenses. They see the moment to strike. And that's when God intervenes. Earthquake, fire from heaven. Every man's sword turned against his brother. Supernatural deliverance that shocks the entire world. But here's where the prophetic picture becomes absolutely crystal clear. How does Israel, a nation in semi-constant warfare since 1948, surrounded by enemies, facing existential threats regularly, how does Israel ever get to a place where they feel that's secure? The answer is what's happening right now. October 10th, 2025. The Gaza ceasefire takes effect. Not just a temporary pause, comprehensive, structured, internationally guaranteed. Israel begins withdrawing from parts of Gaza. Violence drops 48% in the first month. But it's not just Gaza. The Lebanon truce has been holding since November 2024, a full year of relative calm. Syria is about to sign a U.S.-brokered security pact with Israel. Demilitarization of the border region, permanent neutralization of the northern threat. Think about what that means. For the first time in Israel's 77-year history, they could potentially have peace on 3 major fronts simultaneously. South, Gaza ceasefire, check. West, Lebanon truce, check. North, Syria, pact, check. The only remaining threats? Iran, which is distant, and the outer ring of Russia and Turkey, which are very, very distant. For the first time since 1948, Israel could legitimately say, we're secure on all our borders. The confidence, the ability to lower defenses, to stop living on constant alert, to dwell safely. But notice something else crucial about this timing. You might say, but Israel still has walls, security barriers, 440 miles between Israel and the West Bank. That's not unwalled villages. And you're right, but remember what Jared Kushner said in 2024. He talked about the long-term vision. As trust builds, as economic integration increases, as peace proves itself, those security barriers would eventually need to come down. You can't have true integration with walls everywhere, he said. Economic development requires freedom of movement. Trade requires open borders. Peace creates prosperity. Prosperity requires open borders. Open borders create vulnerability. Vulnerability invites invasion. But there is an even deeper layer here that most people never see. The coalition Ezekiel describes, it exists right now. Verses 2 through 6 identify the nations. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters. Let me translate those ancient names. Magog, Meshech, Tubal equals Russia, the power from the far north. Persia equals Iran, explicitly named. Ethiopia/Kush equals Sudan region. Libya/Put equals Libya. And North Africa, Gomer. Togarmah equals Turkey region. For most of history, this coalition was impossible. Russia and Iran were enemies. Turkey and Russia were rivals. These nations had nothing in common. But look at November 2025. Russia and Iran more allied than ever. Russia and Turkey, despite being historical rivals, increasingly coordinated. The coalition exists. The alignment is there. All that's missing is the trigger. The moment when they look at Israel and say, they're vulnerable, they feel safe. Now is the time. And what creates that moment? A peace deal, a ceasefire, a sense of security. Exactly what we're watching develop right now. We're not just reading ancient prophecy. We're looking at tomorrow's invasion plan. Discovery 2. Peace and safety. Then sudden destruction. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. The Apostle Paul is writing to the church in Thessalonica about the return of Christ, about the day of the Lord, about the sudden, unexpected nature of how the end times unfold. And he uses a phrase that should make every Christian watching current events in Israel stop cold. But before we get to that phrase, I need to show you the context. Because what Paul writes immediately before that famous verse sets up everything we're seeing happen right now. Verses 1 and 2. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. The day of the Lord. That's not the rapture. That's the tribulation period. The 7 years of judgment that come after the church is removed. The time of God's wrath poured out on an unbelieving world. The worst period in human history. And Paul says it comes as a thief in the night. Unexpected. When people aren't watching. When they've let their guard down. When they think everything is fine. Now watch what he says next. Verse 3. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Stop right there. Read that again. Slowly. Let every word sink in. When they shall say, peace and safety. Not when there is peace and safety. When they say it. when they declare it, when they proclaim it, when the rhetoric, the headlines, the official pronouncements all announce, "We've achieved peace. We're safe now. The danger is over. The conflict has ended." That's when, that exact moment when the declarations are being made, when the celebrations are happening, when everyone is convinced the worst is behind them, that's when sudden destruction comes. They will have evidence to support their confidence. They will think they've finally solved the problems. They will relax. They will celebrate. They will let their guard down. And that's the moment, that precise moment, when sudden destruction falls. Now let me show you something most people miss. The Greek word translated sudden is aphneidos. It means unexpected, unforeseen, taken by surprise. It's used only one other time in the New Testament, Luke 21:34, where Jesus warns, "Take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unawares." Unawares. Same root word, same concept. The day of the Lord catching people completely by surprise because they weren't watching, weren't sober, weren't spiritually alert. And the word destruction is olethros in Greek. Not annihilation, not ceasing to exist, but ruination, devastation, catastrophic loss, everything falling apart, everything collapsing, the world as they knew it ending. And Paul says they shall not escape. There's no way out, no exit strategy, no plan B, no last-minute reprieve. Once it starts, it's unstoppable. Then he gives a comparison. As travail upon a woman with child. Now, if you've been through childbirth or witnessed it, you know exactly what Paul is describing. Labor pains don't come gradually and gently. They come in waves. They intensify. They accelerate. And once they start, you can't stop them. You can't delay them. You can't say, "I'm not ready. Let's pause this." The baby is coming whether you're ready or not. That's the day of the Lord. That's the tribulation. Once it begins, it doesn't stop. It intensifies. Wave after wave of judgment. Seal judgments. Trumpet judgments. Bowl judgments. Each worse than the last. Building toward the final crescendo of Christ's return. And the trigger, the thing that begins it all, is people saying, "Peace and safety." Now, here's why this matters so desperately right now. Here's why we need to pay attention to what Paul is warning about. Look at the headlines from October and November 2025. October 10th, 2025. Historic Gaza ceasefire takes effect. October 14th, 2025. All 101 Israeli hostages released alive. October 18, 2025. Trump declares peace in the Middle East after breakthrough. October 25th, 2025. Violence in Gaza down 48% since ceasefire. November 2, 2025. Israel-Syria security pact imminent, officials say. November 5th, 2025. Regional experts. Israel more secure than any time since 1948. November 8, 2025. Abraham Accords expansion brings era of peace. They are literally, not metaphorically, not symbolically, but literally, using the exact words Paul warned about. Peace, safety, security, stability. Not just in small circulation prophecy newsletters. Not just in fringe websites. In major international media. In official government statements. In diplomatic pronouncements. In think tank analyses. The rhetoric of peace and safety is everywhere right now. Trump's 20-point Gaza peace plan is being hailed as the most comprehensive, most successful Middle East peace initiative in modern history. Major media outlets, CNN, BBC, Reuters, Associated Press, are running stories about how unprecedented this is, how nobody thought it was possible, how this changes everything. Political leaders are standing before cameras declaring victory. We've brought peace where others failed. We've secured Israel's future. We've turned the page on decades of conflict. This is a new era. The Abraham Accords, which already have 7 nations normalizing relations with Israel, are being called transformative. Economic integration is accelerating. Trade agreements are multiplying. Tourism is booming. Joint business ventures are launching. Israel's stock market has responded positively to the peace deals. Investment is flowing in. Tech partnerships are expanding. The economy is growing. Prosperity is increasing. And with the imminent Syria Security Pact, Israel would have peace on 3 major fronts simultaneously: Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria, for the first time in their entire modern history. Think about what that does psychologically. Think about what that does to a nation's collective consciousness. For 77 years, Israel has lived under constant threat, constant alerts, constant readiness for war, never able to fully relax, never able to truly feel secure. And suddenly, in late 2025, that changes. Hostages come home, ceasefires hold, peace deals multiply, security increases, and for the first time, Israelis can exhale. They can stop looking over their shoulders. They can believe that maybe, just maybe, the worst is finally over. That's not foolishness. That's not naivety. That's rational response to improving conditions. They have legitimate reasons to feel more secure. The evidence supports optimism. The trends suggest peace is real. And that's exactly what makes it match Paul's warning so perfectly. When they shall say, peace and safety, not when they're lying to themselves, not when they're ignoring obvious danger, but when they genuinely believe the peace is real, when they have good reasons to think they're safe, then sudden destruction cometh upon them. The deception is the point. The false security is the setup. The genuine belief that things are getting better is what makes them vulnerable. Now let me show you why this pattern appears throughout Scripture. Because this isn't new. This isn't unique to 1 Thessalonians. God has been warning about false security before judgment for thousands of years. Turn back to the days of Noah. Genesis 6 describes total wickedness on the earth. Violence everywhere. Corruption. Evil continually. God decides to destroy the world with a flood. He tells Noah. Noah builds the ark. He preaches righteousness for 120 years while building. And what were people doing right before the flood? Jesus tells us in Matthew 24:38-39. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noe entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came, and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Eating, drinking, marrying, normal life, everyday activities, business as usual, nobody panicking, nobody expecting judgment, nobody believing Noah's warnings were actually serious. They weren't ignoring obvious danger. They just didn't see the danger. Life seemed normal. Food was available. Weddings were happening. The economy was functioning. Everything looked fine. Until the day Noah entered the ark. And then the flood came. Sudden, unstoppable, inescapable, and it took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. The same pattern, life seeming normal, people feeling secure, then sudden catastrophic judgment. Or look at Sodom and Gomorrah, Genesis 18 and 19. God tells Abraham he's going to destroy Sodom because of their overwhelming sin. Abraham intercedes. God agrees to spare it if even 10 righteous people can be found. But what was Lot doing? He's settled in Sodom. He's sitting in the gate, a position of leadership, of influence. He's married, he has daughters. He's integrated into the community. Life is normal, prosperous, secure. He's not cowering in fear. He's not living in constant terror of judgment. He's comfortable. He's established. He feels safe until the angels come and tell him to flee. And he hesitates because he doesn't want to leave. Because despite the wickedness around him, despite God's warning, he's comfortable there. He feels secure. And then fire from heaven. Sudden, complete, devastating. Sodom and Gomorrah utterly destroyed in one day. Only Lot and his daughters escape, and even then, barely. His wife looks back, longing for the security she's leaving, and becomes a pillar of salt. Security before judgment. Normalcy before destruction. Peace before catastrophe. Or consider Jerusalem before the Babylonian invasion. Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 14. They have healed also the hurt of the daughter of my people slightly, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace. The false prophets were proclaiming peace. Everything's fine. God's temple is here. We're his chosen people. Jerusalem is invincible. Don't listen to Jeremiah's warnings. There's no danger. The people believed them. They trusted the temple's presence. They relied on their covenant status. They felt secure in their city walls. They thought God would never let anything happen to Jerusalem. Until Nebuchadnezzar's armies surrounded the city. Until the siege began. Until famine struck. Until the walls were breached. Until the temple was burned. Until over 1 million people were killed or taken captive. They said, peace, peace, when there was no peace. And sudden destruction came upon them.